August 1944. Northern France. An urgent dispatch must reach General Patton's advancing flank, and there is only one vehicle capable of crossing the churned earth and flooded shell holes fast enough. A small, square, olive-drab machine, the Willys MB Jeep, is tearing across terrain that would instantly defeat a conventional truck, its low-slung body bouncing violently but never slowing. This vehicle, moving with relentless, almost defiant speed, is the true engine of the Allied victory. Observe its features. Its stark, open-top design, its lightweight chassis, and the almost unbelievable traction of its tiny, yet tenacious 4x4 system. The Jeep was an engineering miracle disguised as a simple box. It was the crucial, unbreakable link in the entire Allied logistics chain, enabling troops to outrun their own supply lines. This simple design gave every soldier the speed, the agility, and the sheer audacity to flank, outrun, and ultimately, conquer the Axis forces. It redefined the very concept of military mobility. Born from a desperate and impossible set of military requirements in 1940, the Jeep wasn't just adopted, it was worshipped by the soldiers who relied on it. Generals rode it for crucial reconnaissance, and the infantry turned it into an impromptu mobile anti-tank platform. This is the deep dive into its frantic genesis, the high-stakes competitive battle between three American auto giants, Bantam, Willys, and Ford, and its unparalleled service record. We reveal how this resilient little machine became the indispensable workhorse of democracy that changed modern warfare forever. If you believe that the real secrets of victory lie in the hidden engineering and relentless logistics that underpinned the greatest military machine in history, join us now by hitting the subscribe button and let's dive into the legend of the Willys MB. In 1940, the U.S. War Department experienced a major shock. As the German Wehrmacht executed the lightning-fast Blitzkrieg, crushing the Allies in France and the Low Countries, it became terrifyingly clear that the future of warfare was speed. The Axis forces relied on fast, coordinated, mechanized movements that bypassed static defenses. Suddenly, the U.S. Army realized its own motorized fleet, composed largely of slow, heavy, two-wheel drive trucks and unreliable, exposed motorcycles, was catastrophically obsolete. The Army needed a vehicle that could keep pace with an armored offensive, traversing fields and shattered roads where no conventional machine could follow. This realization created an immediate, existential crisis for American military mobility. Before the Jeep, the American infantry relied on a confusing patchwork of transport. Heavy command cars were too easily bogged down. Motorcycles, while fast on paved roads, were notoriously unstable and left their riders completely exposed to enemy fire, proving disastrous in rough terrain. For actual off-road movement, the Army often still relied on centuries-old technology, the horse or the mule. This glaring gap, the absence of a light, durable, multi-purpose vehicle capable of sustained off-road reconnaissance and communication, was the most critical logistical deficiency the Quartermaster Corps had to address before the U.S. could even consider entering the conflict. In June 1940, the U.S. Quartermaster Corps issued the specifications for a revolutionary vehicle. The requirements were almost paradoxical. The vehicle had to be extremely lightweight, ideally under 1,300 pounds, to be lifted by 4 men or safely airdrop. Yet, it had to have four-wheel drive and a robust chassis capable of supporting a machine gun, surviving steep inclines, and carrying a 600-pound payload. The vehicle's low silhouette was mandatory to avoid detection, but the ground clearance had to be sufficient for broken terrain. Engineers across the country looked at the list and saw not just a challenge, but a technical impossibility, given the manufacturing capabilities of the era. The greatest challenge wasn't technical, it was temporal. Reflecting the intense fear gripping Washington, the deadline set for manufacturers was unprecedented and brutal. Companies were given a mere 11 days to submit their final engineering blueprints and design specifications. Following that, they had only 49 days, less than 7 weeks, to deliver a completely functional, running prototype for immediate field testing. This insane schedule immediately eliminated many established manufacturers who couldn't pivot quickly enough, leaving only a handful of desperate, eager, or utterly audacious firms willing to attempt the impossible. To meet the daunting performance metrics, especially the need for high torque, low weight, and the ability to climb a 45-degree grade, the Quartermaster Corps implicitly demanded a revolutionary power unit. The existing civilian engines were either too heavy or too weak. The final design would require a motor that could churn out significant horsepower and, more importantly, torque at low engine RPMs to maximize off-road capability. This need for a compact, efficient, and robust power-to-weight ratio set the stage for one of the greatest mechanical innovations of the era, the four-cylinder engine that would eventually be perfected and famously christened the Go Devil by Willys Overland. Of the 135 manufacturers initially contacted by the Quartermaster Corps, only 2 officially submitted bids on time, and one was arguably the most unlikely savior: the small, struggling American Bantam Car Company of Butler, Pennsylvania. Bantam didn't have the manufacturing muscle of the giants, but they had Karl Probst, a brilliant freelance engineer who worked around the clock to meet the impossible 11-day blueprint deadline. Probst famously finished the design in just 2 days, sleeping only a few hours. Bantam was first out of the gate, submitting the plans for what would become known as the Bantam Reconnaissance Car, proving that genius often thrives under desperation, not corporate luxury. Willys Overland, a larger, but financially fragile company from Toledo, Ohio, initially hesitated. Their engineers believed the 1,300-pound weight limit was impossible to meet while maintaining the necessary ruggedness. However, seeing the massive potential of a long-term government contract, Willys took a calculated risk. They leveraged their proven expertise in engine design, aiming to produce a vehicle with far superior power, the Go Devil, even if it meant exceeding the weight limit. Their prototype, the Quad, was heavier and slightly slower to arrive than Bantam's, but it was built around the philosophy that brute strength and durability would ultimately win over the Army. The third major competitor, entering the race slightly later, was the colossal Ford Motor Company. Ford's entry was designated the Ford GP, commonly nicknamed the Pygmy. Unlike the smaller firms, Ford brought its immense mass-production experience to the design table, integrating design elements that would ensure swift assembly if the contract was awarded to them. Although the Ford prototype was conceptually similar to the Bantam and Willys designs, a boxy, low-slung utility vehicle, it was the sheer scale and efficiency of the Ford factory that made their late entry a serious contender for the contract. The prototypes were delivered to the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland in the late fall of 1940 for the most brutal testing imaginable. Engineers and military officers watched as the 3 fragile vehicles, the Bantam, the Willys Quad, and the Ford Pygmy, were subjected to weeks of relentless trials. Deep mud trenches, steep 45-degree climbs, continuous high-speed runs, and endurance tests. All 3 demonstrated the groundbreaking potential of the 4x4 platform in military reconnaissance. Crucially, the tests showed that Bantam's design was the lightest and most nimble, but Willys' powerful Go Devil engine offered superior climbing torque. A critical failure emerged during the trials. All 3 prototypes exceeded the mandatory 1,300-pound weight limit, some by hundreds of pounds. The Willys Quad was the heaviest, primarily due to its robust engine. The Army realized they had asked for a mythical beast, a vehicle that was both lightweight enough to be lifted and rugged enough to survive combat. The Quartermaster Corps had to concede that durability was more important than portability. They immediately revised the weight limit to 2,160 pounds, effectively resetting the race and giving Willys, with its heavier but more powerful engine, a decisive advantage in the next phase of the competition. After the initial competitive trials, Willys Overland secured the initial primary contract. Their victory was twofold: Technically, their heavier chassis was deemed more durable, and the Go Devil engine offered demonstrably superior torque and horsepower. But the decisive factor was financial. In a massive cost-saving measure, Willys famously promised to deliver the vehicle at a unit price of $738.74, a significant saving over Bantam's initial bid. This shrewd financial decision, combined with the power of their engine, cemented Willys' role as the chief architect of the legendary vehicle. Despite Willys winning the main contract, the Quartermaster Corps faced a logistical nightmare: the need for massive, interchangeable production. The Army realized that to equip a global force, they needed an entirely standardized design. In a highly unusual move, the Army took the best features of all three prototypes, including Bantam's lighter chassis layout and Ford's improved hood design, and merged them into the final Willys design. Crucially, they ordered Willys to make their powerful engine blueprints available to any future competitor, effectively forcing the companies to collaborate for the war effort. The consolidated vehicle emerged as the Willys MB Military Model B. This final version was a masterpiece of simplified, wartime engineering. It shed all unnecessary frills, featuring flat sheet metal, a bolt-on windscreen, and exposed headlights. Every component was chosen not for comfort or style, but for durability and ease of replacement under fire. The standardization ensured that a component built in Ohio, Willys, would perfectly fit a Jeep assembled in Michigan, Ford, providing unprecedented logistical flexibility for ground crews operating thousands of miles from the nearest factory. The heart of the Jeep's success lay in its revolutionary engine. The Go Devil was a four-cylinder L-head side valve design that, while technically old, was perfect for the task. It was incredibly robust, mechanically simple to maintain, and, most importantly, produced immense torque at very low RPMs. This low-end power was the real key to its 4x4 prowess, allowing the Jeep to crawl slowly and deliberately out of mud, sand, or deep shell holes where a high-revving engine would simply spin its wheels and stall. This engine became synonymous with unbreakable resilience. The origin of the name, Jeep, remains a subject of historical debate, adding to the vehicle's folklore. The most common theory suggests it originated from the Army designation GP, General Purpose, being slurred together by soldiers into Jeep. Another popular theory traces it back to Eugene the Jeep, a magical, versatile cartoon character from the Popeye comic strip. Regardless of the true origin, the name was officially cemented in 1941 when a Willys test driver famously demonstrated the vehicle's capabilities by driving it up the steps of the U.S. Capitol building, telling a reporter, "It's a Jeep." After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the demands placed on American industry became astronomical. Willys Overland, despite winning the initial contract, simply could not scale up fast enough to meet the global demand, which quickly rose to over 15,000 units per month. The U.S. government realized that a single-source supplier was a strategic liability. To prevent logistical collapse and equip the newly expanding military, the government mandated that the much larger Ford Motor Company must enter the production race, providing a crucial second source for the standardized vehicle. Ford's version of the standardized vehicle was designated the GPW, which officially stood for General Purpose Willys. This name was a testament to the fact that while Ford was manufacturing the machine, the core design and engine blueprints belonged to Willys. Ford was instrumental in refining the stamping processes, making minor modifications to streamline assembly, but they adhered strictly to the Willys MB specification. They manufactured nearly 280,000 units, demonstrating the collaborative power of American industrial might during wartime. The greatest achievement of the joint production was perfect interchangeability. Military doctrine demanded that a mechanic in the remote South Pacific could take a component from a Ford-built GPW and install it directly onto a Willys-built MB without modification. To achieve this, the Army enforced ruthless standardization. Ford adopted a unique internal practice. Almost every single part on their GPW, from the bolts to the chassis, was stamped with a small, discreet F to identify its origin, serving as an internal quality control measure and a quiet mark of the company's commitment to the mandated design. Ford brought more than just capacity to the table. They brought the genius of the moving assembly line, the system they had pioneered decades earlier. Ford was able to achieve astonishing assembly speed, figuring out how to construct the complex 4x4 drivetrain and robust chassis faster than any competitor. Their meticulous approach to breaking down the manufacturing process into simple, repeatable tasks was essential to flooding the European and Pacific theaters with the reliable transport the Allied forces desperately needed to maintain their momentum. Once built, the challenge shifted to shipping hundreds of thousands of Jeeps across vast oceans. To maximize transport space, the vehicles were often partially disassembled and packed into specialized shipping crates, a process known as crating. The physical dimensions of the Jeep itself, particularly its width and height, were initially determined by the tight constraints of the narrow decks and internal cargo holds of the transport ship. This logistical reality meant that the final dimensions of the Willys MB were as much a result of naval engineering as they were of automotive design. The Jeep's most defining feature is its distinctive vertical grille. Initially, the very first prototypes experimented with various grille designs, but the final, iconic 7-slot vertical grille, a design patented by Willys, was chosen for its simplicity and superior airflow for cooling the relentless 4-cylinder engine. This design became so intrinsically linked to the Jeep brand that it later became the subject of intense legal wrangling. Its stark, simple stamping symbolized the vehicle's entire philosophy: maximum functionality with minimum complexity. The boxy, angular body panels of the Willys MB were not a stylistic choice. They were a direct result of wartime necessity. Unlike civilian cars with their complex curves, the Jeep featured mostly flat, stamped sheet metal for its hood, fenders, and side panels. This genius of structural simplicity meant two crucial things. First, parts could be stamped out rapidly and cheaply by the millions, and second, any damage sustained in the field, a common occurrence, could be hammered back into shape or quickly replaced using rudimentary tools and minimal training. This maximized uptime and minimized the logistical burden of repair. Every detail of the Jeep was designed for tactical utility. The headlights, for instance, were mounted prominently on the front, not integrated into the body. This deliberate positioning allowed the entire sealed beam unit to be rotated inward to illuminate the engine compartment, turning the Jeep into its own mobile service station for night repairs. Furthermore, the two-piece windshield was hinged to fold completely flat onto the hood, dramatically reducing the vehicle's silhouette during reconnaissance missions and allowing the driver and gunner better visibility and line of sight. One of the initial, ambitious requirements in the QMC specification was the inclusion of a power takeoff system, or PTO. This was intended to allow the Jeep to function not just as a vehicle, but as a mobile generator, pump, or even an external winch, running tools directly off the engine. While the initial Bantam design included a fully functional PTO, the final standardized Willys MB largely dropped this feature to save weight and streamline production. However, the very requirement cemented the Jeep's identity. It was engineered to be a universal utility platform, not just a means of transport. The Jeep's legendary ability to traverse brutal terrain came from a non-glamorous, yet perfect engineering choice: solid axles suspended by simple, heavy-duty leaf springs at all four corners. This system, which dates back to horse-drawn carriages, was chosen precisely because of its simplicity, durability, and predictability. The leaf spring suspension provided incredible articulation, allowing the wheels to maintain contact with the ground even over uneven surfaces, guaranteeing constant power delivery to all four wheels, the key to its off-road dominance and resilience. The Jeep's initial, intended purpose was a light reconnaissance vehicle. Its low silhouette, coupled with its reliable four-wheel drive, made it the perfect tool for forward scouting, intelligence gathering, and quickly charting enemy movements. But its value extended immediately to command. Generals like Patton and Eisenhower frequently relied on the Jeep, eschewing larger, more visible command cars. Its speed allowed officers to personally assess changing battlefield conditions, moving rapidly between units, providing a level of fluid, hands-on command that the previous generation of generals simply never had. Soldiers quickly realized that the Jeep's toughness and speed made it an ideal mobile weapons platform. Using ingenious, often improvised field mounts, troops began installing the reliable Browning .30 caliber machine gun, and later, the heavier .50 caliber, directly onto the passenger side or the roll bar. This transformed the Jeep from a mere utility vehicle into a lightning-fast infantry fire support unit, capable of laying down heavy suppressive fire and rapidly relocating before the enemy could zero in on their position. Its vulnerability was offset by its incredible agility. In the constant search for tactical advantage, the Jeep became a favored carrier for anti-tank weaponry. It was small enough to hide easily, but robust enough to carry the heavy bazooka rocket launcher teams and their crucial ammunition stores. Later in the war, the Jeep was frequently modified to mount the powerful 75mm recoilless rifle. These highly effective weapons were too heavy to be carried long distances by infantry, but when mounted on the back of a Jeep, they provided a terrifyingly fast anti-armor capability, allowing crews to shoot and scoot rapidly out of harm's way. Perhaps the Jeep's most crucial humanitarian role was as a field ambulance. Its compact size allowed medics to drive deep into areas inaccessible to larger, purpose-built ambulances, navigating shell-cratered roads and dense forests to retrieve the wounded. Custom-built stretcher supports allowed the Jeep to transport 2 casualties, one on the hood and one over the rear seat, back to the field hospital. This capability drastically cut the time between wounding and surgical treatment, saving countless lives and cementing the Jeep's reputation not just as a fighting machine, but as a life-saving tool. In modern warfare, communication is command. The Jeep frequently served as a dedicated radio truck, carrying the heavy and delicate SCR, Signal Corps radio set. These massive radios, essential for maintaining secure communication between battalions and headquarters, required power and mobility. The Jeep provided both, often acting as a vulnerable, yet vital, forward communication hub. Radio operators working from the Jeep ensured that critical intelligence and tactical orders were never delayed, making the little vehicle the essential backbone of the Allied command structure. Despite its small stature and lightweight design, the Jeep was frequently pressed into service as a miniature tow tractor. Its powerful low-end torque, delivered by the Go Devil engine through the robust four-wheel drive system, allowed it to punch far above its weight. It routinely towed the light but essential 37mm anti-tank gun and later the 57mm gun, as well as cargo trailers laden with ammunition and supplies. This dual-purpose role, towing heavy equipment while still serving as reconnaissance, made it an unparalleled asset in rapid-moving armored columns. Faced with destroyed roads but often intact railway lines, Allied ingenuity led to one of the most bizarre field modifications: the rail Jeep. Mechanics in various theaters developed specialized flanged steel wheels that could be quickly fitted onto the Jeep's standard axles. This transformed the vehicle into a high-speed, light railway scout car, allowing troops to inspect long stretches of track for sabotage, deliver urgent dispatches, or ferry small groups of personnel through occupied territory at speeds that defied conventional road transport. This adaptation saved countless hours of valuable logistical time. In the immediate aftermath of combat or at temporary airfields, the threat of fire was constant. Creative ground crews adapted the Jeep into a mobile fire suppression unit. By mounting large water tanks and connecting pumps to the engine's drivetrain, often utilizing modified PTO access, the little vehicle became capable of rapidly delivering water or fire-retardant foam to aircraft fires or burning depots. Its ability to navigate rough terrain right up to the source of a blaze gave it an advantage large fire trucks simply could not match. The simple mechanical accessibility of the Jeep's engine made it an ideal mobile power source. In remote repair depots or forward field workshops, mechanics frequently rigged the engine to drive large generators or even welding unit. This allowed for emergency repairs on larger equipment, like tanks or artillery pieces, far from established base facilities. The Jeep thus became a crucial part of the repair chain, proving that its utility extended beyond transportation to become a fundamental tool of heavy equipment maintenance. The ambition to make the Jeep truly universal led to the development of the Ford GPA, or the Seep Jeep. Although technically a related but distinct vehicle, the GPA shared the Willys engine and much of the four-wheel drive technology. It was designed with a boat-like hull to be fully amphibious. While the Seep proved too heavy and cumbersome in water to be widely successful, its existence is a powerful testament to the military's confidence in the Jeep platform. If the standard Jeep could conquer the land, surely an amphibious version could conquer the water, proving the design's perceived limitlessness.